Your party steps onto the creaking deck of a half-submerged ship. An eerie melody drifts through the sea mist, while rotting hands claw at splintered planks. And just beneath the waves, something pulses with dark, malevolent magic. Ready to turn the tide in Chapter 3 of Dragons of Stormwreck Isle? Stay right here, because in this video, I'll give you everything you need to keep your players on the edge of their seats. From a steamy ambush to a curse that could doom them all. Welcome back, Dungeon Masters. Today we're diving into Chapter 3 of Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, the Cursed Shipwreck, complete with the Hot Spring Havoc travel encounter, 4 decks of eerie exploration aboard the Compass Rose, and enough undead to keep your cleric very busy. By the end of this video, you'll be ready to run this session like a pro, armed with tips on every monster and piece of loot. Let's set sail. Okay, here is your player warning. If you intend to be a player in the starter set adventure, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, this video is packed with spoilers for Chapter 3. If you're a player, consider yourself officially warned. Kindly bow out now and let the DMs do their plotting. We're going to be starting with the Hot Spring Havoc travel encounter. Your players have possibly already done Chapter 2 with the caves, and have already reached level 2. Now they're off to the shipwreck site in Chapter 3. Remember, both Chapters 2 and 3 in the adventure book are written as though the players are level 1, but with adjustments to be made if they are already level 2. So on the way to the shipwreck, they will come across these hot springs. They'll encounter some steamy, sulfur-scented havoc, rumored to actually have healing properties. But of course, in true D&D fashion, trouble is brewing first. Lurking within this whimsical sauna are 3 fume drakes waiting for unsuspecting adventurers. Now, if the party went to the caves first and already encountered some fume drakes, they might just remember how these little fellas operate. These mini draconic terrors are all about their breath weapon. Now that they're located at a hot springs, picture them darting in and out of the steam for cover. They can tactically zip down, breathe their breath weapon at the party, and then zip back away, hidden by the steam again, which is about as polite as seagulls stealing your french fries. Once your group defeats these creatures or figures out how to outmaneuver them somehow, the hot springs actually has some healing properties and can provide a mild healing bonus. Here's some tactics for running that fume drake encounter. Consider having them swoop in and out of the steam clouds, exhaling fumes and then retreating before the party can even retaliate. However, remember, this is going to actually provoke opportunity attacks that the party will get to take against them. Remember, the environment matters here as well. There's rocky outcrops or some thick steam plumes that could grant some partial cover. Now, if we take a look at page 14 of the starter set rulebook, goes over the cover rules. In the lower left corner of page 14 here, there's a little chart and a little description about how cover works. Now, I'd suggest if the fume drakes take some cover behind rocky outcroppings, to use the half or 3/4 or total cover adjustments to AC and saving throws that's listed in the book. But if they're just kind of going back into a steam cloud, perhaps you could adjust for that a different way, like having disadvantage on attacks against them, because it's kind of hard to see them and get proper aim through the steam. Once the drakes are defeated, the real use of the hot springs begins, and it offers actually the same as a short rest in way less time. A short rest, remember, is an hour. But if a party member bathes in the steam springs for 10 minutes, they can roll a hit die and get some hit points back. Now let's get on to the star of this chapter, the shipwreck. With the hot springs ordeal behind them, the party soon comes upon the shipwreck of the Compass Rose. Its fractured remains are kind of jutting from the ocean, like a very sad monument to bad navigational decisions. The locals have likely told the party that many ships have fallen victim to something dreadful around these parts and crashed on the shore here. You might encourage the party to do a little recon from the shoreline. Some good perception checks might reveal some weird footprints in the sand or even some strange feathers nearby. Now, the Compass Rose is half submerged in the water and perched on this rocky shoreline area. Something has actually been drawing the ships to navigate directly towards these rocks, and it's time for both the players and the characters to figure out why. Make sure you remember to set the mood here. Talk about the sounds of seagulls overhead, or maybe even find some background ambient noise with crashing waves and seagull sounds. Now, the map for the ship is on page 25 of the adventure book. And yet again, I'll remind you that the maps in this book are for Dungeon Master eyes only. Sometimes there are secrets on the map that you don't want the players to see ahead of time. It is possible, though, if you are using maps and minis, You could blow these images up and then use other pieces of paper or some way to obscure the other parts of the ship that have not been explored yet, and then slowly uncover them piece by piece as the players explore around the compass rose. So one thing that the players are going to come across if they venture into a certain room is a couple of zombies in the captain's cabin. Now, it mentions 2 zombies, but again, that is if the characters are still at level 1. It does have instructions to add a 3rd zombie if the players are already at level 2. Remember, you've run zombies before, so you've got this. Remember that zombies are slow and relentless, and they have that undead fortitude that makes them only drop to 1 hit point sometimes rather than going right to 0. Players might remember this and actually have some really good tactics for dealing with more zombies this time. When they venture down into the lower decks of the ship, they're going to come across even more zombies and a ghoul, which is a new creature that we haven't learned about yet. So let's go over this ghoul's stat block. So ghouls are also undead, and it says they have an insatiable hunger for flesh. You'll notice that their speed is 30 feet, but the zombies only had 20 feet, so they're a little bit faster. Now, these zombies have a bite attack that does 9 piercing damage and a claw attack that does 7 slashing. The difference here with this claw attack is that you'll notice it can also paralyze people. An exception is if the target is an elf or another undead. And you may remember that the fighter character sheet is a wood elf. So if someone in the party is playing the wood elf fighter, then this paralyzation effect is not going to happen for that player. But don't give that away. Let them figure out by the elf being unaffected by one of these claw attacks, and you could have players make survival checks perhaps to see why it is they're not being affected. Now, to not be affected by this paralyzation, it says that they have to succeed on a DC 10 Constitution saving throw or be paralyzed for 1 minute. I know 1 minute doesn't seem very long, but in combat in D&D, each round is only 6 seconds. So for 1 minute of being paralyzed is literally 10 rounds of combat. However, you will notice that the target gets to repeat the saving throw at the end of each of their turns. So while they're still paralyzed and their turn comes back around, they're not really going to be able to do anything, but they get to repeat the saving throw each time to possibly become unparalyzed. And make sure you check the conditions chart on the back of the starter set rulebook for how paralyzed actually works. This creature is incapacitated, can't move or speak. They automatically fail strength and dex saving throws. Any attacks against them now have advantage, and any attack that hits the creature is a critical hit if whoever's attacking them is within 5 feet. Ouch, that one's a doozy. So here are some tips for running the ghoul. Now, if you're looking for tips on how to run the zombies, you'll find those in the Chapter 2 video right up here. Now, ghouls are undead that are driven by their insatiable hunger for flesh. You can show this by having them constantly kind of sniff at the air or describe them salivating or even letting out growls from time to time. They're meant to sound a bit feral in a menacing tone. Now, I'm also going to encourage you to use this paralysis really strategically. This can very quickly overwhelm some unlucky dice rolls by the adventurers. To keep it fun but not hopeless, try staggering their attacks so they're not trying to paralyze half the party in just a few rounds. It's meant to be scary, but not a guaranteed total party wipeout. You may have also noticed that the zombies and the ghoul on the below deck are located in the same area. This is actually going to create a lot of excitement and tense moments to have the characters fighting all of these creatures. I suggest starting out with the zombies and having the ghoul kind of surprisingly come out like in the middle of that battle as if they didn't realize that there was another creature in the room. It adds a lot of variety to the combat encounter. Consider having one of the zombies maybe block the doorways, so unless he's eliminated, they can't even get out of the room. If they do escape the room, the zombies might not be intelligent enough to follow them, but that ghoul sure is. This way, the players are going to have to really strategize how they're going to focus on multiple targets that can do damage to them in really different ways. I would also suggest foreshadowing something about the ghouls before they actually encounter them. Maybe leave some gnawed-on bones or half-eaten pieces of meat that the party can discover. You could also include some religion or arcana check to let players try to recall if they know anything about ghouls and how dangerous they can be. Remember, pre-battle dread can be just as terrifying as the actual fight itself. Now, I also want to go over some things on the character sheets that, as a DM, you want to remember in case the players tend to not really realize that there's some things that they can do in these situations. First off, if we're looking at the human paladin, let's not forget that the paladin has divine sense. So as long as an undead is not behind total cover, if they choose to use this ability, they can know the location of them within 60 feet. They also, if they have leveled up to 2nd level already, would have spells available. And the Paladin spell list includes things like Protection from Good and Evil, and even Bless, which is going to at least let players add another die to their saving throws. Also, if they're already 2nd level, then the Paladin has Divine Smite available, which allows them to spend a spell slot to do extra radiant damage with 2d8. It actually increases to 3d8s if the target is undead, which both the zombies and the ghoul are. Now let's move on to the Wood Elf Fighter. They do have a fighting style of archery, so that does allow them a bonus to attack rolls with ranged weapons, so they might be able to hit some of these creatures really well from a distance. It also appears as though the wizard also has protection from good and evil, and the cleric has protection from good and evil and bless. Now remember, this is provided that those players decided to prepare those spells for that day. Now, fighting multiple zombies and a ghoul at the same time can be a new experience and kind of difficult for the players. But this is all the fun of D&D. Let them think outside the box and reward their creativity. If they come up with some really great ideas, think of a skill check that might apply and maybe grant them advantage on it. Adventurers, if you're finding this video helpful, be sure to click the like button. It helps more adventurers find us. Now, eventually the party does figure out that there's more to this ship than just undead. Deep in the hold lies a talisman that radiates pure, unfiltered evil. Now, players are going to have to swim underwater and maybe occasionally come up for air, all while trying not to lose this precious artifact to the briny depth. You're going to be using the rules for suffocating, which are on page 9 of the rulebook. They tell you how long each creature can hold its breath, and it's different for all of them. Combine this with some strength checks that may be needed to bring a certain heavy treasure chest up from below, and it's going to get real interesting. Now, there is still one more menace that's going to confront the players on this ship. The Harpy. With a mesmerizing melody, the Harpy has been luring ships to come and crash into the rocks on purpose. She is cunning, perched somewhere high, and definitely not interested in polite conversation. At any moment, she can charm the players with her song, forcing wisdom saves that, if failed, will have your players staggering mindlessly towards her. So let's check out this Harpy stat block. You'll notice she only has a speed of 20 feet, but she can fly 40 feet. She also has a multi-attack each turn. Her claw attack for 6 slashing damage and a club attack for 3 bludgeoning damage. But the real dangerous thing here about a Harpy is her luring song ability. Now, I encourage you to let the illusions run wild here. If the party tries to find a way to block their ears or tie themselves to the mast to keep from walking off the ship, that's half the fun. Don't forget, if cornered, she will fight back though. This is an excellent time to allow for some comedic gold. Some solutions might work better than others, but hey, the dice can amuse us all. So what exactly is this luring song ability? It states that every humanoid and giant within 300 feet of the Harpy that can hear the song must succeed on a DC 11 wisdom saving throw or be charmed until the song ends. Now, if you have a wizard or a fighter in your party with these pre-made character sheets, and they both have a special feature called Fey Ancestry, it states that they have advantage on saving throws that they make to avoid being charmed, which will come into effect with this Harpy song. The other really great thing about this song is that if characters are more than 5 feet away from the Harpy and they do become charmed, they must use their movement on their turn to move towards the Harpy in the most direct route, even if this means walking off the edge of the ship or into danger itself. It also states that if they would take any damage from walking into that terrain or any damage from a source other than the Harpy, they actually get to repeat the saving throw. I wouldn't give this away to the characters, but if they can figure it out, that literally means one of them could walk up to another one and just try to do a little 1 point of damage to them. This means they could try to maybe give them a slap or just a little poke with their dagger for a tiny bit of damage so that they could repeat the saving throw. So once the saving throw is successful, it says the effect ends, but you'll notice it also says that a target that succeeds on its saving throw is immune to this Harpy's song for the next 24 hours. So once they've been charmed and managed to snap out of it with the saving throw, then they won't get charmed by this Harpy song again. Also, page 27 in the book has some tips about negotiating with the Harpy. Let me throw in here that there's also a couple conditions which will trigger the Harpy actually returning to the ship. One of which is that they find the chest down in the hold and then come back up. Or the second is that they try to do a short or long rest on the ship. And that's what actually triggers the Harpy to return to the ship. Now there are instructions on page 27 on if the characters try to talk to the Harpy. It does speak and understand common. There are ways to get the Harpy to leave or even negotiate with it. I'll also point out that the book states if the characters come here when they're level 1, there's 1 Harpy, but if they've already leveled up to level 2, there's actually 2 Harpies present. So here's some tips for running the Harpy or Harpies. I would highlight that luring song that it can sing. Mesmerize players with that haunting melody. Describe to them how it actually makes them feel and how they feel so compelled to move towards the Harpy without giving up. Also, use the high vantage points that are around. The shipwreck is near the cliffs, or you also have the top of the mast where the Harpy's nest is located. If one of them does succumb to being charmed, they're going to have to try to walk off the edge of the ship or even climb that mast to try to move towards the Harpy on their turn. This high vantage point is also going to allow it to swoop in, make attacks, and swoop off. It'll retreat out of melee range for a hit and run style. Also consider giving this Harpy some personality. Maybe give her a screechy voice, or that she collects shiny little trinkets that keep falling out of the crow's nest. And maybe she speaks very broken sentences and likes to mock intruders. Now, if you are using 2 Harpies in this instance and the fight just seems to drag on too long, people aren't seeming to be having so much fun, they're getting frustrated, or it's not going so well for the party and things are looking a little dire, you can always find a creative way to get one of the Harpies to leave. Now that you've guided the party through both haunted waters and steaming springs, I suggest a little bit of downtime, even if it's right here on the ship. Feel free to incorporate a moment of downtime right here on the deck. Let the party reflect on how they faced these monsters. Did someone actually get charmed by the Harpy? Did they adopt a stray undead parrot? The game is full of weird possibilities. Lean into it. With any luck, your players will emerge a little saltier and a little soggier, but undeniably closer to becoming the legends that they want to be. Remember, there's always another story waiting to be told, another deck to be explored, and always another slime-covered treasure chest to open. Be sure to join us in the Chapter 4 video for the intriguing conclusion to Dragons of Stormwreck Isle from the starter set. Subscribing and hitting the notification bell is the best way to be alerted when that video is posted. Don't forget at the end of this chapter as well that the party is going to now have a chance to level up, whether that's from 1 to 2 or from 2 to 3. May the dice treat you kindly, and may your next adventure be slightly less damp. Now you're going to want to watch one of the videos on the next screen. Go ahead and click on that, and I'll see you there.